Run the first AC and everything.
Yeah, man. This production anyway, man. But
Yeah,
how's it going, dear? Good to see you, Danny. Good to see you.
it's good. It's really good to see you. I'm super proud of you. I love seeing you do the one man production show. That's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm maintaining, man. This one is simple enough. I wanted to get a couple of eyes on the situation, so I figured whip up. I got a Lumix to do like the main shot, and then I got a couple HD webcams. So
Awesome.
not too much. Not too. I spend more time on the lighting. You know how that goes. It's like you adjust something just a little bit, and it changes like my wife was like, "Yo, like you've been lighting this room for like 3 weeks now."
I know. Well, I did the same thing, turning off lights and lamps, and ultimately, I just went with the natural lighting. So just rolled up the blinds, and that's all we get.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, man. Well, let me just introduce real quick. How you doing, guys? My name is Trei Hill, and this is the new Filmosophy. Yes, and we have the pleasure of having us today, Dani Johnson. She is amazing. First and foremost, we met on the set of Loving in Virginia. She was a director's assistant, and I was the production assistant. And I'm super excited for us to talk about just what has happened from then till now, because our trajectories we've kind of gone different places but done a lot of the same stuff. Her, of course, a lot better than me, of course, but but I'm really curious about that. But we're also going to get into the Florida project. She was fortunate enough to actually be a part of the producer team, and I'm super stoked to ask about that, just because like I will get into it. It's one of those movies that I really feel like if you were a part of it, like you added to the genre. It's not just some poofy thing. Like it's a film that really it was characters that really needed to be seen, a lifestyle that not a lot of people know about, so I'm really curious about hearing about it.
Yeah, definitely. And no comparisons, Trey.
All right, I got you. Just anytime it's appropriate, or anytime I can, I'm gonna try to boost you up just a bit. You know what I'm saying? I just gotta be honest. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Yes.
Cool. Well, first thing that I have to do, if you were here, if you were alive, there's a show board behind me, and you would sign it. So basically, you're gonna have to work vicariously through me. Okay. All right. So I want to make sure I get this right. It's Dani, because you so fly. I did that. All right. And then Johnson. I love it. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. All right. I don't know if you can still hear me or not, but
Yes, you can.
all right, cool. I'm gonna grab myself some pins. All right. Last episode we did Star Wars Episode 3. It was nerd levels of catastrophic proportions. That's all I'm gonna say.
I love it.
Got really nerdy up in here. We loved it, man. It was a great time. I had one of my buddies that he teaches media composer now, but we went to school at SCAD. So he was here, and a guy that coincidentally was from Maryland that I met up here. It was them two, my guys, and now we're film buddies, man. It's a nice little film community in Atlanta that we've been building.
Nice. Good.
The Florida project.
A little different than Star Wars.
It's slightly. You guys have way more laser beams, of course. Said no one ever. Cool. All right. Dani.
I love it. Dani J.
Oh yeah. And Johnson, it seems generic, but actually my favorite basketball player growing up, he played for the Phoenix Suns. His name was Kevin Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I loved him. He was like 6'1", and he had like these two epic dunks. Like it was like one was on Hakeem Olajuwon, one was on Hot Rod Williams.
Yeah.
Kevin Johnson. Yeah, that's a name of royalty, ladies and gentlemen.
That's awesome. You'll have to talk to my partner at some point. He's a basketball coach at the Gunnison High School, and he likes to talk about people dunking on each other a lot.
Oh, great. That's perfect. See, that's full circle. And he's the Johnson.
Circle.
See?
Mm-hmm.
Full circle. I love it, guys. I love it. I love it. We planned that. So, yeah. So there's a couple more chores that we got to knock out, but they're fun chores. I ask everybody, don't feel pressure. Don't feel like there's a wrong answer. What is your filmosophy?
Filmosophy. I love it. I love that so much. I like it. It immediately makes me think about it. You can come at that question from the point of a viewer, like as an audience member or as a filmmaker. You can have certain ways that you philosophize, or sort of what your motto is kind of going into things, watching and receiving a film, and ways that you go into sort of creating and making and developing a film. I think those are two different questions. What do you think you're most interested in knowing?
Man, you can tell me all three if you would like, honestly. I'd love to hear it all. See, when I think about it, I do think in terms of a viewer and a producer or creator, and I feel like almost synonymously, if I could wrap it all up, I would say that it's about, to me, I'm probably stealing from a bit of all the guests. I'm probably going to do like an amalgamation of what everybody said, but to me, it's about like this raw expression of what we hold sacred, It's an opportunity, if any of us can be vessels as artists, like I kind of see it as like, if that's a catch-all at all, it's like when I think to myself of what my filmosophy is, I'm sitting down and I'm watching it, and I put forth all the effort to create it because I'm trying to create this organic feeling, as honest as possible, and I hope that it's of service. I hope that it is it's grabbing a hold of a sacred or at least a moment, right? That means something to somebody, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say from like the producerial standpoint, filmosophy is really important, especially if you're trying to cultivate a community or an empire where filmmakers are continually coming back to you as a producer to continue to work with you and build financing and continue to make projects together. It's been interesting because I think that I've worked for a lot of other directors and producers and companies, and pretty much you take on their filmosophy, whatever the company's sort of their mission statement is, or whatever that producer, if they're really interested in. I've really been trying to follow producers and companies who do exactly what you just eloquently said so well, which is who have this desire and will to do something that's more than just entertainment, that has something to do with social impact. So I've tended to surround myself with producers and directors and companies who have that sort of mindset, and I feel really grateful. My personal philosophy, I think, comes from a place of understanding that media in and of itself, whether through the platform of film, podcast, audio, news, all that kind of stuff, like that messaging that we get as humans is so important, and that platform just reaches so many people, and there's so much connective tissue when you think about everybody watching one story together, or everyone sharing in a story about ourselves together. There's something really powerful about that. So I think my philosophy comes from wanting to create from a platform and finding our common ground, what connects us all. I think that there's a lot of films and media out there being produced that has a lot to do with how different we all are, and look at us, we're so unique, and that's great. I love that there's room for that, and I think it's a really important time to start collecting media and talking about what brings us all together, what makes us the same, and we're all human, we're all made of the same stuff. So my philosophy is just like, how do we make everybody feel empowered, and that their perspective is unique and valuable, no matter what society's, what value society places on it. Each person's perspective is valuable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. You like to think that, everything's a progress. I always say progress feels the best, and to just be a part of it, man. Just be a part of, the evolution, of things becoming more multicultural, everybody kind of different voices, everybody kind of having a chance to express the full gambit of what it is to be a human, right? That it's a beautiful thing. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, so then my next question is, name a VHS that you still own, or one that you can think of that you popped in.
I used to have I definitely don't own a VHS anymore. It's been a while. But we used to own fried green tomatoes. We used to own The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice.
Which was three VHS tapes. Like, it took 3 films or 3 tapes to like record the whole movie. And I watched that one on repeat a lot. And the original Willy Wonka. Those were like 3 go-tos as a child. That happened a lot. I'm from the South. I'm from East Texas.
Nice. Represent. No, man. No, Willy Wonka. It doesn't, like, Gene Wilder is swag personified. From the moment he came, like, on his back walking,
Totally.
dripping with swag. Flip. Here I am. It was on ever since. I loved it.
The theatrics, between the theatrics and the imagination, and just all of the, I don't know, just like colorfulness. It's a pretty psychedelic film for a kid.
Definitely. Yeah. It's dealing with when he's in the tunnel and like he starts, things are turning and it gets a little crazy, man. But
it's crazy.
Hey, such is life. Such is life. You got to learn eventually. Hey, That's cool. All right. So, with the pandemic, this is a lot different question, but what's the last movie that you've seen at a theater?
Ooh, yeah. Pandemic time has made it interesting. Let me think about this. I think it was actually with the Crested Butte Film Festival. They put on like some side screenings, and you're gonna have to help me. It was the Nicole Kidman film. And she plays like a detective, an inspector, and she's older in this film, but she does such a kick-ass job. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name of it. This happens to me a lot.
I won't judge you. No, it's fine. Most recently, because I know I've been seeing her in Big Little Lies. Oh, was it Bombshell? The Fox when they're doing the Fox News people.
Actually, one of our producers from Loving, Brian Kavanaugh Jones, was a producer on it. Is it Nicole Kidman or is it someone else?
Or The Undoing?
No. I'm gonna have to do some.
Destroyer. Yeah. Okay.
So it's not super new, but I think that's the last one that I saw, like, actually in a theater.
Wow. Yeah, man. When was that? Let me see, 2018. So yeah, man.
And I saw that this last year. Of course, like, even though films come out, like, I'm in kind of a rural area of Colorado, so some of the films we get are a lot later than some of the major cities, and we might be a couple years behind.
Hey, judge free, man. That is so awesome, though. That's a nice trade-in to be in Colorado, though, man. Everybody that I hear that moves there, they just speak glowingly about it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, I feel really lucky.
Cool. How long have you been there?
So I've been back here for 3 years, but this is actually my college town. Gunnison, Colorado is where Western State, well, now it's a university, but when I went here, it was Western State Liberal Arts School.
Cool. Awesome. And is that when you first started doing film, or?
And this valley, this area is kind of what inspired me. I moved from East Texas up to Colorado, and I think being in expansive mountains and just having all this space and stillness just was really inspiring and made me think about, a world that's so much bigger than just me. And then from here went to Austin and Los Angeles and New York and Cannes, France, and all that good stuff.
Cool, man. Awesome. All right. Yeah. So I guess what was the specific, I guess, you know, from when you were in school to that first gig, what was that transition? Were you kind of focusing on like directing, writing? Were you just kind of like whatever happens, happens? Kind of when you went from school to your first gig, what did that look like?
Yeah, I love that question. I love that question because a lot of times I think we look at other people's lives and we're like, oh, they just woke up a director, they just woke up a writer. It's like, no, there's usually like a process in there and some intentions that people are holding on to for a really long time before things start to manifest.
Right.
In school, I think that I've always wanted to write. Like ever since I was in grade school, I've written letters to my parents, to close family friends. I've just always been like a handwritten letter kind of person all my life, and take to journaling and just like I have a lot of thoughts. There's just a lot, and there's a lot of stories going on.
Yeah, man. And there's nothing like actually writing it down. You know, like even I find like even just like trying to switch to electronic, like it's just nothing like burning it down on some pen, you know, I mean on some paper to really.
So true. I love it. Burning it down on some paper.
Right.
I love
Yeah,
it.
man.
So true. Yeah, there's something very cathartic about it for sure. So I think that I had always known that. And then in school, I didn't go to a film school. I had one professor for film philosophy, for film history, for my documentary, for narrative. It was, one person. So, but his name's Jack Lucido. I'm sorry.
He needs to get a copy of this podcast. You need to make sure film philosophy.
Shout out to Jack Lucido, who
hey, what up, Jack?
covered many roles, many professional professorial roles, but yeah, kind of taught us what it was like behind the camera, and also in some of our film history classes he taught me about Terrence Malick and some of his early films, and Terrence Malick is someone who I would go on to work for within that next couple of years. So that's, he gave me some basic film introduction that I wasn't expecting. I didn't know that I wanted to pursue film. I had come out to Colorado because I was more interested in geographically and experientially, like being in this area. And then it just so happened that taking some of those film classes and screenwriting, I just sort of started falling in love with the ability to play with all these philosophical ideas about life and humanity through the platform of film and media. Yeah.
That's cool, man. I'm sorry if I look. I'm like I said, I'm making sure everything's still recording.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I know I'm like losing track of my timeline here. It's been a while since I've kind of talked about the story of Dani.
I'm excited to. I've been wanting to hear it. I've been waiting 5 years, guys, in the making to hear this. You don't have time on set. There's too many coffees for me to make, so.
I know. There's too many things to do. Too many Dr. Peppers for me to go get for Jeff Nichols.
Right. It's good you still memorize that, man. See? You gotta be a good assistant first. A good assistant first before you're good anything else, right?
It's so true. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, I think that the jump for me was kind of being exposed to film production as a job and as a career. Like I didn't even realize people had jobs in film until I kind of started exploring, film school and those classes and just exploring that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then one of my first film TV jobs actually was the Discovery Channel sent a small team. Their production company is called Sirens Media, and they sent them out here to the Gunnison area and had picked up a couple interns from my college, and I was one of them, and I was a PA. It was my first job for the Discovery Channel show called Who Survives. Nice. And it's they go through some rigorous elements out in nature, and you try to see, who stays alive and who doesn't. So we just kind of did some pickup shoots and tried to make like some areas around Gunnison look like something in Utah. And I remember that was the first time I was like actually out in the field and carrying equipment, and there was a director and a producer, and it just sort of like solidified this idea for me that like you and your buds can go in the woods with a camera, and like that can be your job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to do this.
Right. Yeah, man. That is so beautiful, man. And because I know when I first PA'd, like I just remember thinking like it's just a matter of time before I find my niche, like just as the days went by, I kind of started, you hang around the camera crew, the grip crew, the production design. Everybody's kind of got their own flavor. Was there anybody that was calling you at the moment, or what kind of took you to the next step from PA?
Yeah, good question. After that first short gig, that only lasted like a few days in a row. That's when I left Gunnison after I graduated in 2011 and moved to Austin, Texas. And I had gotten an internship with the Austin Film Society. And so I definitely took on more production assistant jobs, in between. It wasn't just like, here's an internship PA job and then, okay, move on to the next rung in the ladder. There's like, I know you know it well, but we pay our dues. Like when we pay our dues, we really, really, really pay our dues.
Right. Yeah. It's not like it's like, I go from this level to the next level to the yeah. It's like, yeah, man, it's like we sacrificed, what is it? Security for freedom, so we're making it do what it do,
And so sacrifice security for experience. Like for me, I'm just the type of person that values the experience over certainty. I don't know. That's just, it's gotten me into trouble sometimes, but that's just how I roll.
It's fulfilling, man. I feel, for better or worse, man. I like it, man. So I guess I'll just say this, because eventually this is our paths are going to merge when you're director's assistant. So you're not the only one rambling. I know for me, when I first decided I wanted to do film, I was working at Geico and at Walmart doing a pyramid scheme. I was just trying to find a way out. And then I kind of ended up choosing to go to film school and kind of falling in love with it from there. I was very similar to you. Like I was always kind of a writer. I rapped for a long time, so I would MC events and stuff like that. But as far as actually writing screenplays, it really wasn't until around that time that I really started getting involved in it. So from there, I got a PA gig from a friend of mine that I graduated with at the Art Institute of Washington, and that gig got me on the House of Cards. So I PA'd on the House of Cards, and then once you kind of have you have the right people know who you are, see you do some decent work, you kind of got some cool stuff on your resume. Now you kind of can start bouncing around, and so and that was, long story short, how I ended up meeting you on the set of Loving. What's really cool is, Sharon has worked. Sharon Blackwood. She's acted on like 2 of my shorts for me. She's awesome. She lives right down the street from me.
Oh, nice.
Will Greenfield. Him and Tanya live down the street. Well, now he's in LA, but he comes to SCAD Atlanta all the time, and he comes and speaks to us, gives the kids like advice and stuff like that. Say kids, us. He gives us advice and stuff. So it's cool, man. I'm hoping to have him on the show.
Love you, Will and Tanya. Yes.
Yeah, man. And Will Dalton and Alano. I keep in touch with them. Nice. Yeah, man. It's so cool. So Adam Stone, he's gonna be on here one day. So yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's cool. I just, and Will always says that Loving was like he'll be chasing that feeling for the rest of his life. I know how, like with him and Sarah, I know that it was very personal for him specifically. I'm very similar to that in that it was just like it is one of the best experiences I've ever had, and definitely one of the best experiences on a production, you know, especially at that magnitude. It was just the ambiance that the producers and Jeff, you know, man in the ship, and Cass, oh my gosh, she was just the sweetest, you know. It was just, well, I'll never forget you guys, and just, you know, that experience. I got to be so close to people like at the top of their craft, you know, so it was, yeah, so cool.
I love that. I love the way you say that, like being close with people at the top of their craft, because it's so true. When you work with people, you get to see like little snippets of their life. Like you're seeing them at this little point in time of the scale of their life is like this big. And I think what I love so much about film, and especially that experience on Loving, but you know, you're given a short amount of time, a short amount of money, great expectations, you know, and you have a group of people come together and work together and communicate to achieve this one big goal all together. And I just think it's a really cool way to witness like what humans can do when they come together all for one goal and one purpose. And you're right, it does make a difference, like who the leadership is, and it makes it really special. Yeah, so before I met you on Loving, I was working with Jeff Nichols on Midnight Special. That was the film he did before that. Mm-hmm. And then just before that, I was working for his producer, Sarah Green, with another director, Terrence Malick. And we worked on Voyage of Time, the documentary, and a couple of other films that Terry had in editorial at the time. And yeah, so you're right. Everything is a stepping stone. It kind of leads you to the next. And I think one of the things that you mentioned that I'd like to touch on too, just as like an important part of my journey, is like intention. Like none of this has happened without being intentional. And I'm not saying like I specifically want to work for Terrence Malick or specifically want to work for Jeff Nichols or these certain people, but I think that there has always been this intention behind what type of films I want to make, the types of experiences I want to be a part of, the types of people and humans that are bringing it together, the money that's behind it. Like all of that makes a huge difference. And I think that really was solidified for me when I moved out to Los Angeles, because I had been in Austin and sort of these smaller towns and smaller communities, and you get out to LA and it's, the business of filmmaking is different than the art of filmmaking. There's a little bit of a difference there. They need each other, but it's a different world.
Exactly. Yeah, man. I agree. And I know that it's crazy because I considered and still would consider going out to LA, and there's so many paths to Rome. It's been so interesting listening to all my different friends and different colleagues as we've made different decisions, just how we've ended up where we've ended up. And you're talking again about that trajectory and that intent. Like I'm all about vibrationalism, and about the law of attraction, and everything is mine. And I know that I honestly feel like the slower times in my career are when I'm the haziest, when I maybe am not the most focused. And that's what's just such a blessing about right now with everything that I feel like I'm doing right now, as far as knowing that I want to direct and knowing that I want to be an antenna for that film community, right? So situations like this podcast, where it's like the very thing that brought me to film was those 2 or 3 hours that you would talk with your friends or your family after you guys watched this incredible movie and it touched you guys. And so it's like, having these moments to be able to do that with people that, I haven't connected with in forever. All of them, we all have different things that are akin to each other, and then just being really content with where I'm at as a filmmaker, paying attention to where my feet is, like being very humble with that. And I was just talking to my buddy about this. We've been working on this sci-fi feature.
Yes.
And was that, yeah, man, I'll tell you about it. We're super stoked about it. I gotta send you a link. I'll send you a link to a trailer for my thesis that we finished up too.
Okay, awesome. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, super excited about it. Yeah, man, it's called Child Indigo. Yeah, it's in any event. The last two shorts I did were these sci-fi films, and I love that. I love doing that stuff. I love conceptualizing with meaty subjects and kind of cool and flashy way kind of thing. At the same time, one of my buddies that I always write with, we bounce ideas off each other. We show each other our scripts and help each other write. He was showing me. He gave me one of his life story scripts, I guess. And he gave it to me. It was called Hobo Jungle, and it was basically a coming of age story about him and his buddies. Like one of the their little brothers go missing, so they go inside of the woods to go looking for him, and then they find this homeless community, and kind of everything else happens from there as they try to search him. But as I've been kind of inching towards that very organically, because I'm like, I want to do this for him. I want to make sure we make this happen. But unfortunately, last year he passed away of cancer. Yeah, man. We've all, we're healing. It's something that happened, a while ago. So the impact, isn't, as crazy at this point. But I've been talking with his family stuff and everything, and we've conceptualized a short film basically so that we can get the campaign going. We've been talking to the city of Montgomery and super excited about it. And I find as all this stuff is happening for the film, it was just I had like this awesome feeling coming over me as I'm dealing with things with graduating and all these film productions that I'm planning to do and the scripts that we've been writing and all this producer stuff, helping with different people, all about the plan, trying to make the correct decisions. But the whole time, just as organically and as loving as ever, there's a story. There's a guy, I met him when we were playing college football. Coach wasn't giving him the chances dealing with politics. He had some kids. He became a police officer. Everybody loved him. He was a nice guy. He wanted to start writing some screenplays, so he called his old college friend that he saw posting stuff on Facebook, and we started writing, and then he died. What happens to a dream deferred, right? Like Langston Hughes. Not on my watch. Like, that's why I'm making film. And that's the most fulfilling thing ever when you're talking about coming at feeling fulfilled as you're trying to round that story, because there's days where I'm taking care of my newborn and like this throw up on my chest and I don't really feel like a filmmaker, right? And and then it's people that you will talk with me that I work with, and it'll be like, I don't feel like a filmmaker because, I'm not in film school and stuff. And I'm like, well, nobody that I was on set with went to film school. We can kind of all kind of get this imposter syndrome or kind of feel like what we're doing is for naught. But again, just being very content with where you're at in your feet, and just this heart of service, coming at it with the heart of service, with the story that you really feel like you are there to put out. I feel like that's, for me, has kind of what has kind of manifested this, well-rounded life currently, where I can kind of do the things that I want to do personally. It's hard, you got to balance it all, but I can do those things and then I can feel fulfilled within my craft as well. I don't know if you feel like you've gotten to that point.
Absolutely. I think I'm still working my way up, but I think one of the really important things that you're touching on right now is this concept of conviction. And I think that's something that all artists can relate to. Like, when you are overwhelmingly you can't do anything else but this one thing because you feel so called and so magnetically pulled to it. It's like every time you look around, there's something reminding you, or something you've set up 5 weeks ago to remind yourself to focus on it or write it again. I think there are things that are very close to our hearts as humans, whether they're people, stories, ideas, concepts that stick with us, that we feel led to share, to talk about. And yes, I've had those things that have stuck with me for decades, and I feel like they're still percolating. I feel like my life is the most creative directorial position I could possibly take, as like life itself is, we're meant to be designers and producers of our own how this thing turns out, and what we use our time for, and how we invest it in ourselves or others. And just like a movie budget, our human energy is limited. It can only go so far. We have to like replenish it and all that stuff. I think it's just such a great metaphor. So I don't know. I think that having conviction is really important. Having those people and concepts and ideas, beliefs, values that keep you inspired, those impulses that we follow, to me, that's conviction. And I think as an artist, it's just really important that our convictions turned up really loud. I think especially in the world right now, there's lots of stuff going on. It'd be really easy to just tune all that down and like not listen to our conviction. And I think as artists, you're called to kind of be present and be with the moment and the times and what's going on and what can we learn from this? How can we view it differently, and put different perspectives out there? And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is, you knew a man, you walked next to a soul who had a conviction to tell a story, and you're not going to let that go undone. You were on his path and you were there hearing it. And so the baton has been passed on to you in a way. And I think that's what's so cool about film and media in general is we really are all passing the baton on to one another. Like no idea is just one person's, it's all of ours. Like we all have access to it, and it's all for us to like expand our consciousness and the way we think about ourselves and our world and each other, how we relate, how we connect, how we share, whether that's in thoughts or resources. I don't know. I just think it's a really cool medium to be able to do that. And I really just want to honor you and thank you for following your intuition and your gut instinct to help certain things live on. I think that as a human being, that is such a really beautiful quality to embody.
Blessings, man. No, that's great, man. It's all, to me, it's like elementary, my dear Watson. It's reciprocal. It's fulfilling. I've been humbled, I've burned both ends, burned on both ends. You know what it's when you're doing things and why you're doing things. And at the end of the day, this is, again, it's the fulfilling thing of it all, right? It's been a while. We've yet to get inside of the movie, but again, guys, this is my buddy. I mean, we haven't spoken for so long. This is exciting. I'm just so encouraged. Just hearing your everything, just us talking and everything, man. So I wanted to ask now, before we got into the movie, I want to know, because I remember you directed a short, Frogger, correctly?
I directed a short film called Frog.
Frog. Sorry, excuse me. All right, yeah.
Okay.
So you directed a short named Frog, and then I also know that you're listed as a associate producer on the Florida project, correct? So before we get into it, I just want to ask you, when we're talking about, we keep bringing up being specific, what would you say specifically that you want to do? Is it anything as a producer or as a director, or do you specifically want to direct or produce, or what would you think? And also, I'm saying this also understanding that you've just worked with, you've worked for a lot of awesome people at the top of the craft. And I know that you have had like an awesome insight from different people and seen things that you have given you an awesome perspective that I know that it's invaluable. So I'm looking forward to it.
I love that question. That's so great. It's really cool. I think this all kind of ties back to my college days, which, speaking of full circle, again, and energy just does this. It just tends to move cyclically. But I'm back in my college town as of 3 years ago, and it's interesting because I look back and I think about all of my work culture experiences. I've worked at an engineering firm as an office manager before I entered the film world. And then I did the film world for about 10 to 11 years and had a lot of different experiences, the ones that you've mentioned. And I'm incredibly grateful. Now that I've come back, I'm kind of in more like a reflective state of how all these questions you're asking me. How did I actually get there? What was I intentionalizing? Be careful what you ask for because you'll get it, like kind of thing. And so I've been on this journey for a while and learning from all of these really beautiful filmmakers like Jeff Nichols and Sean Baker, and also just learning from all of the human beings in their life. Jeff's wife, Missy Nichols, she's just a beautiful human being and person. And yes, you learn from things of the craft of filmmaking, but I also learned how to how to run a family while you're a filmmaker. Jeff and Missy had a 3-year-old son when I first met them and started working with them. So it was really cool to see the whole picture. It's not I'm just a filmmaker. It's I'm a human being, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and kind of all these things you're starting to experience yourself. So I really look back on my film career and what I've done so far as a conglomeration of a bunch of different human experiences. I've done a lot of things, from nanny to run around and make sure the director has what he needs on set, to helping write up, meetings we need for the week with, different department heads that week. I've helped do, I'm just starting to blank on all of my like camera terminology. It's been a long time since I've been on set.
Yeah, judge free, man. I'll just tell you, I hope this helps your memory out a bit. I remember Jeff and Cass were talking about a shot, and then they was, they was just gonna give it to you, and I was just like, what? I didn't hear it, but I was whatever. But then maybe 30 minutes later, I see you over with the kids over by the tree, getting, I guess, B camera or like B-roll shots of the kids just playing around on the tree, and I'm like, boss. Danny's a boss. They've got her. They said we need something to film. They called Danny. I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah, man. From babysitting to, and all I'm saying is that I'm sure is these things as an assistant, man, that you do things well, that you get those opportunities, because things need to get done, and it's just about if you are lending yourself to the process and showing that sort of initiative that makes them trust you, right?
Absolutely. Jeff Nichols has one of the best camera teams and camera families I've ever gotten to know.
Shout out to Adam, man.
Yeah, shout out to Adam, shout out to Neil. And so second camera, Neil was always running, and yeah, there was that day that Jeff Nichols, he really did. He was like, no, you got it. You got these shots. Go direct these kids. Go tell them to play on the tire swing and run around. And so that was really cool to have that level of trust. And thank you for saying that and reflecting that memory back to me. It's really cool to not only do I have that memory, but people that I've surrounded myself with, and you're reflecting that back to me. Just, I don't know, it makes me really grateful to have you carrying those memories with me. It's really beautiful. But yeah, so like you're saying, there's this huge range of things that you do. And I think between learning more about the craft of filmmaking and then after working with Jeff Nichols, is when I made my short film Frog. And then that was actually in between moving to Los Angeles and kind of starting working with June Pictures, which that was the company who we produced and financed the Florida project. Given those experiences, I think that at a certain point I had wanted to write and direct my own things, and had been feeling really grateful for all of the writer directors I've gotten to work under and learn from, experientially soak up osmosis, just being around them. Like, I truly believe in that. I think that it was just really important for me to take a step away from hustling to get all of those assistant and associate jobs and really spend some time with myself and my own craft of writing and my own interests, and sort of seeing what type of creation and imagination came out of that. So I have some ideas swirling. I have been writing the last 3 years, but I think one of the things I'm actually working on creating is a production company idea. And so it spans more than just one short film idea, one feature film idea. It's kind of like this bigger empire of an idea. And it's just kind of a seed that's been planted the last couple of years. But I've already kind of started to lay the groundwork for it, and the company itself is called Big Thoughts, and it's this whole idea that every single human being has really big thoughts, and they're meant to be shared. And I think that Hollywood and our current modern media, like, once again, we talk a lot about what we don't like seeing in our world. I don't like this and I don't like that. And I really feel called, speaking of conviction, I really feel called and convicted to create a platform for people to create films and podcasts and any sort of media that speaks to them, that's from this place of joy and creativity, and how can we be creative, intuitive led human beings and let that restructure our society, instead of just this fear and segregation and separation, and just return to hatred and mistrust. Because I just rather not focus on that, and rather use my talents and skills and the conglomeration of skill sets that I've picked up from all of these wonderful teachers along the way, and actually do something with it that provides a platform for more artists. I think that I've always wanted to do, like, if I'm going to do something artistic, I want it to be collaborative and involve more than just myself. That's just personally how I feel called to approach it. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting, it'll just be really interesting to see how it unfolds, because it's just a seed of an idea. You don't know what it looks like yet.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the fun part. I know that, especially just watching. You can watch Jeff and Adam, and you can see the spark in their eyes when they're talking, or when when I'm working on my sets and I'm talking with my AD and the production designer, or when we're back at my house, building stuff or going on Home Depot trips. Like, that's the fun part, like, the problem solving with all these cool people, right? That you naturally enjoy being around, right? Like, that's so cool. And I also want to touch on to what you were saying, just again, with watching people be in a role, and watch them be their whole entire person, right? Like, you watch Jeff not just be a director, but be a father and a husband. And I know with me, it's kind of murky just because of COVID. It wasn't a hard line of me graduating and then going out into the world at this point now. But I really appreciate the trajectory, or the perspective that I have of film, from being on the larger sets and seeing it done on a larger scale, and then kind of choosing to fall back, to not get my 600 days and choose to go to grad school. And I felt like, as I'm at this point right now, I was somewhere where I didn't want to be. and I needed to get there. Like I need to be there. So work until you're there. But what a notion to be somewhere that you are happy to be at, as far as in your life, as far as me being married and having our kid now and our home in East Atlanta. I'm able to keep a decent balanced life. But then I'm so used to the grind. I'm so used to being uncomfortable. That was always my calling card. I may not do whatever else, but I will outwork. I will outwork the next person out. I don't mind being uncomfortable. I don't mind going past my threshold to get it done. But then I'm looking up and I'm not uncomfortable as much, right? So then I start getting insecure, like, are all the hustlers out in LA and in New York, and I'm just getting fat down here in Atlanta. But I just love how, even as I'm listening to you, and it's so encouraging, because without you even saying it, the lesson that you learned from all of those people is not this specific career oriented, like, statement that you can say. It's like be there, man. Be there in your life and have the courage, take the steps. If you want to write, if you got a story that's in your heart, then sit down and write. Respect the writing process. Do that. If you got tired of a set because you were ripping and running for a few years, fall back. Go take care of your man, take care of your woman, let them take care of you, whatever. And I just think it's so easy, especially when you want to call yourself being a director or writer or producer. It's so easy to feel like you're on the outside looking in all the time. But I think that perspective that we have seen is that Hollywood, right? It's this finite space where all the lights are focused on for X amount of days until we pack up and wrap up and go to the next place, right? And so it's just like, you gotta call yourself, asking yourself where you want to be in that process and letting that be okay, and being okay with that, right?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I think that my choice to leave the industry, there has been, and there still could be, a lot of FOMO, a lot of just fear of missing out. What movies am I missing? What am I not working on? Who am I not working with? And I think that ultimately I just got to a point in my life. I'm 31 now, but again, like, everything is intentional. So it's not that I don't want to work in the film industry. It's just that I want to allow it to evolve. And if that means that my original dream of, when I went to school here, the year I graduated, it was like, all I want to do is, like, meet people in the industry, learn how it works, and then move back here, because then I will have like figured it out, quote unquote. If I can be involved in the film industry and live in a place as gorgeous and heavenly as this, then I figured it out. And so it's funny because I haven't figured it out at all. But again, like, that whole idea you're talking about of just, like, really appreciating being where your feet are. And, like, I had a really good friend of mine also that worked for Jeff Nichols that constantly reminded me, don't wish time away. Appreciate where you are. I think part of having your feet on the ground is, that's also in the same sense saying, like, tune into all of your bodily senses. What are you smelling? What are you seeing? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? When your feet are on the ground, all of that overwhelms you. And I think that's what gives us the most the most experiential, evolutionary situations from which we actually transform and grow and reflect and those types of things. So, it's funny because I haven't been involved in the film industry to the degree that I was. And I think that a lot of what you and I are talking about is just, like, an ownership of choices. I know the bigger picture is to somehow be involved in film and media. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I trust the process, and I trust my experiences, trust that vibrational flow of, like, where I've been led. And I really just look forward to to seeing that come together more, because I know it's not over. And at the same time, as much as I really enjoyed working for other people and being surrounded by their osmosis and learning from them, I also realized that that was me being a student. And then there's going to be certain times where I have to fly away from the nest and go figure some things out on my own, whether that be domestically or creatively or otherwise. You know, at one point, Terrence Malick did that for himself. At one point, Jeff Nichols did that for himself. And I think that I've been really lucky to work for these Southern filmmakers who kind of showed me the example of how to create, how to be an artist without getting sucked into the limelight. Because while that's like a great aspect of the artistry, it's not the art itself. And so I think having that reminder of living in a smaller house in a city, in a whatever, just kind of living a normal life like any human being, while also being intuitively and creatively led, is something that I'm extremely inspired by and want to figure out how to blaze my own trail.
Big thoughts, Dani. Big thoughts.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
I love that, man. No, cool. All right. So yeah, I'm sure we'll end up going off in a couple of tangents again. We'll get into Florida Project at this point. All right, guys. So my wife she's a bilingual therapist, and she loves this movie. It's sad. Oh, it's a sad story, but it's a lot of her clients, unfortunately, and she sees this story so much. And again, like I was telling you before, I think what's so cool about this is just that after, like, if you're a part of this, once it's done and it's out there, you did a service. Like I was saying before, it's not like some flashy gimmicky thing that just made a couple of bucks, right? That got into black. Like, this is an awesome contribution, and I know that, and I just want to hear the beginnings of it. You getting a part of it, and the Sean choosing his DP and actors, all kind of getting to the pre-production of that whole situation.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say that I brought a prop.
Nice.
These are my Florida Project sneakers.
Nice. That's great.
This is the scene from Futureland.
Nice. That's great, man. I love that.
This is from a company called Left Untied.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think they just kind of got a hold of the Florida Project and fell in love with it. And this is actually one of my favorite scenes is Willem Dafoe, and he lights a cigarette.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That scene was so beautiful.
Motel, like one of my favorite scenes. But
that was a beautiful shot.
But yeah,
that's cool.
This is my prop that I had to bring.
I love it. Thank you. Yes, man. I love that you brought that, man. That's perfect. That's perfect. So yeah, man. I mean, it's such a beautifully shot film. You know, Sean makes great work. Was this your first time working with him? And again, just where did you get into the situation, and kind of what was the process that you watched kind of unfold?
Yeah. So after working on the Midnight Special and loving with Jeff Nichols and making my own short film called Frog, that is when I moved out to Los Angeles and started working for a finance and production company called June Pictures. And they were a startup. So literally we found an office off of Wilshire Boulevard and it was empty. And like many times before, I put on my office coordinator hat and I outfitted the place with everything from, internet to furniture, and, got it all set up. And then we were a finance company in LA.
Wow, that's
little
beautiful.
Studio boutique. Alex Sachs was the CEO of the company, and the financier, his name was Andrew Duncan. The company no longer exists, but at the time we produced 7, maybe 8 feature films, one of which was a documentary. And so Alex Sachs was a former packaging agent over at ICM, and Sean Baker has representation at ICM. And so there was a little bit of the Hollywood agency game of, I have this material, I have this money, I have this financier, let's all get together.
Gotcha.
And so Alex Sachs had really built the slate of films for June Pictures before I ever walked into the door. So it was like, hey, you're signing on to work for this company. We have like 4 feature films. And the Florida Project was one of them. And the story goes that June Pictures basically purchased the Florida Project off of a napkin. Some idea that Sean wrote down, one night at dinner, and they were like, yes, whatever you want to do, let's do it.
Let's do that.
Alex Sachs and Andrew Duncan had seen Tangerine and Starlet, and were just really taken by Sean Baker, like so many of us are, just as a human. Like, he's just very captivating in the way that he thinks, and the contrast that he's able to hold in the same space is really cool. And for him, it really came from a place of like, he was very inspired by the original Little Rascals, like from the 20s and 30s. Because it's this whole idea of children and growing up and having a childhood that's like playful and fun, but set against the Great Depression. And so he really loved this idea of like this childlike oblivion and playfulness in the midst of just world and adult shit going down,
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. I mean, because that's how it's able to sort of peer into the window of this very specific lifestyle. I was wondering where that idea came from, because of course, I'm like a degree away from poverty most of my life. I've been kind of circled away from it, but I still right around it. And I'm very familiar with friends and family that had to live out of motels and hotels. Familiar with kids having to be around very adult stuff and having to be. But what's interesting and what I love about the film is that they are completely oblivious to what's really happening, and we're kind of caught in their world, and we see and we know and we kind of understand the bigger things that are happening. Even when the scene when the kids are out playing and the guy, the molester, who he's insinuated to be, he comes walking in, and they're completely unaware of that situation. But right. Unfortunately, if you are a child whose parent is living in and out of a motel, they don't have time to watch you because they're dealing with the life of basically having to live out of a motel, or there's a generational curse there where I was able to go out and play around or whatever. I was fine, so they'll be fine. So they're exposed to this situation in the first place. But then also these guardian angels, Bobby, that are around to help them and take care of that situation. But all the while they're just outside playing, right? But it's so awesome that he was able to peer into that window, and I was curious as to what that was. I
also want to give a shout out to his co-writer Chris Burgosh, and Sean speaks of him a lot when he talks about the origination of this idea, because as you kind of mentioned your friend earlier who you share writing and you kind of do this back and forth, and here's this idea, and those relationships are so invaluable. They're so eternal, and sometimes things get manifested through them, which is really beautiful. So these guys kind of had that same relationship, and Chris grew up in that area and just kind of seeing that disconnect between Disney, the happiest place on earth, right, kind of happening with after 2008, the economic recession and the housing crisis that followed. I think that he was just kind of seeing things happen directly right on that highway, on that strip of all those budget motels. And so for him, it was just like really fresh experiences. And of course, come to find out, as Sean is making this movie and all this social, just, social and human work is being researched around this. It's a way bigger problem. There's hidden homeless in our country. It's international. This message was so much bigger than just like right outside of Orlando and Disney. It's like such a metaphor for so many things, but especially for just the folks that, like you say, are unable to focus on these quote unquote finer things in life and luxuries of looking after and spending time with their own children because their basic needs aren't being met, whether through their own circumstances, through systematic issues that are still being worked out. Like, there's so many reasons why people end up in these situations. But the fact of the matter is, Sean felt called to, he felt convicted along with Chris to share this story of there's a lot of people living like this, and let's give this group of people that get stigmatized a face. Like, they're people and they're trying, and life is hard on them, and we're all in this together, no matter what our class is.
Man, that's so cool. You just made me think about, because I was having a conversation the other day. We are just talking about being ghetto, just different experiences, whether it's having the jelly sandwich or jelly on bread, like that's a dessert, right? That's ghetto, like that's and yeah. What I was kind of saying in the conversation was I noticed myself holding my tongue from saying that's black as hell, right? Because I'm all about, let's claim awesome stuff, right? Let's not claim what it is, what poverty is. It's great that we've gone through this stuff, right. but also let's not be divisive, because it's not black, it's poverty. It's what people that are going through, that are in that bracket, that it doesn't matter what color you are, to feel like the situation is hopeless, because it is, right? And I really love this film for that, because watching Haley, it's like, that is, I love that. Not to get into like identity politics or whatever, but part of me really appreciates that this was a white woman in Orlando that we kind of centered around, because to me it just showed it kind of it took away the kind of identity politics in it, right? It kind of made me feel like, wow, this is anybody. Like, if this can happen to this, to her, then it can happen to anybody. And I kind of appreciated that in that aspect,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really important point. What you just said is, first and foremost, we're humans, we're vessels, and we all have, none of us are exempt of experiencing the side effects of being human. Right. And so I think what you're talking about is putting Haley's character in a position of that could be anybody. It's reminding us that we're all stardust. We don't get to choose where we fall. Like, everybody has a unique perspective, and it needs to be heard, because like you said, if the story could have been told in a lot of different ways, but the fact that it was a white person, especially, and like you said, I don't necessarily feel I feel like an expert that I can talk about white supremacy at all. But I think it is really important to remember that no matter what aspect of humanity we're talking about, everything is a spectrum. Everything is a spectrum. And so it isn't just related to race or class. We touched on it a little bit earlier by talking about film school or no film school, or working with certain people. It's like, life is what you make of it, and if we see things like race and class and education or elitism as limits, then those things will be limits for us. But I think that there's a lot of people, and I think that you and I are two of a lot of people, who are like, no, we're souls and bodies, and we go where we're led, and we do what we're called, and ultimately, I agree. I think the beautiful message that Haley's character carries is, when you aren't able to support your own basic level needs, how are you how are you to be expected to live a creatively inspired, intuitive life? You don't have brain channel capacity for that because all you're trying to do is make rent every single week and make sure your child's fed.
Right. Right. And you're never exposed to anything better. There's no this isn't a Disney film where like there's the coach or love that William Dafoe. Even at the end of the climactic scene, like I'm getting goosebumps because I love him just walking away and smoking a cigarette while he's just talking to somebody talking on the washer, because we know that even though they cussed each other out, that was a sort of a daughter figure because he knows the situation that she's trapped in and it hurts. It hurts him. But to be in that world, and he's trapped too. And there's nothing that he can do. He might be able to help extend your pay every now and then or ask one of your friends if they can pay the rent. But at the end of the day, he can't save you from yourself and from you never getting the exposure. But like you're a kid having a kid. You're another kid having a kid. And you're another person that's going to perpetuate this cycle of trauma because you were traumatized. You know, at the very beginning of the film, she was saying, I can't go back to jail, you know, just kind of, you know, just haphazardly, right? And it's like, and it's, you already know, anybody that's familiar with that world, you know, in the first act what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen to her, you know, and you know, unfortunately, it's as bad as her feeling like she needed to prostitute herself, right? I wanted to go back to when you were talking about us needing us being stardust and making of it what we wish to. I think that a lot, and I'm not. I don't wish for you to speak on it like you know you're an expert in white supremacy, but I say these things as humbly as possible. Where I know within the Black community, a lot of these discussions where we're trying to have the victim Olympics, it's really feeling silenced. It's feeling like nobody gives a damn that it happened. And unfortunately, if we don't, a lot of times we feel like if we don't bring it up, then we'll just keep acting like it's not there, right? So there's that element. And then there's also this element when you talk about identifying yourself with the worst versions of history, and there's a sort of distrust from multiculturalism too that I feel. It's because again, it's this feeling like if it isn't all Black, then when we're bringing up the topic, and if we're not talking about white supremacy so that we can just move on from it, if it's not at the top of the list, then we're just going to assume that some BS is going to happen like it has been. I understand when one may be watching this or watching the film or listening to the discussion and being like, that's us, like that's what I've gone through, you know. But again, that's what's so great about this film, like I said, and that's what's so great about Haley, because you're the fact that again, when we're talking about this world happening where it's all about the licks in life, it's like she steals the dude's armbands after we just saw Mooney taking a bath, and then and the John come in and try to use the bathroom, and then he walks out. Like, we just saw these situations happen as real as Holyfield to her, you know what I'm saying? And her acting like a child, her proving like that kid having a kid thing, it's her that watching her trauma specifically happen to her. This world is amongst us all, man. Put your name on it, put your whoever on it, but it's amongst us. And unfortunately, we're over here looking at the fireworks and we're going to Disneyland or Disney World, and the only time those worlds ever bridge, or the gaps, is when you're being a cheapskate father and you want to get the hotel right outside of the parks. And it's just, yeah, man, it's really cool to see again.
Totally. I think being a part of the producing team was really, really cool. Like, and part of wanting to, when I intentionally went to LA and was like, I want to learn the business of filmmaking. I really did get to see all that manifested, from the development phase. And Sean is such a cool filmmaker to work with and just witness as a human, as a creative human and artist, because everything is so fluid and constantly moving and change. I mean, the script was alive the entire shoot.
Wow.
So there were days we were getting, blue call sheets, at midnight the night before, and you just run and gun and do what you got to do for the sake of the art that's being created. And I think there's just something to, seeing the list of directors that Sean wanted to work, or the list of cinematographers that Sean wanted to work with, the list of, different department heads and stuff like that. Those were the kinds of things that the producing team and As June Pictures, we were helping to facilitate and trying to do. But just witnessing, the whole process of him finding Bria Vinay on Instagram. And then, as the finance company, we're like, no, we need like an A-lister, actress. And he's like, no, for the sake of art, we need this character. And so there's this back and forth collaboration of like marrying the business and the art and seeing, what actually is how it's all gonna shake out. Yeah, I think that when you're working with people who have that full vision, it's really cool to be around, because they know that those small moments of these characters' lives have so much impact and so much meaning. I mean, like, I've watched this film a million times, but I rewatched it to chat with you. And for the first time, I really watched this movie with Haley. I think that I have always related to Mooney and related to the Moonies of the film, and obviously it's such an easy character to relate to, but I think this time I really did sit with Haley a lot and just like watch her internalize everything. And she wasn't in a situation where she could be authentic about herself or humble about her situation to reach out and get the type of help she needed. Whenever she goes to DHS and talks to them, she's cursing and talking about how she strips at the club and she's not willing to do extras and all this stuff she's saying in front of her kid. And like you, Trey, I come from just lower economic class, and I grew up in trailer homes, and I've grown up around drugs and alcohol abuse, and like I've just seen like different ways of living. And I think that it's really funny that this time around I sat with Haley, because I remember actually sitting around with all the filmmakers and my producing team and the financier Andrew Duncan, and we were just all kind of talking just as the Florida Project team. We were like, who are you? Where are you from? What do your parents do? And everyone kind of like went around the room and talked about who they were and where they came from. And I'm like, I'm Dani. I'm from East Texas. I grew up in the trailer park. I'm Mooney. My mom was like 18 when she got pregnant with me. She had me like right when she turned 19. My parents are only 19 years older than me. Like, we've all kind of basically grown up together. So it's funny because, like I said, I've always really related to Mooney every time I've watched this film, and it is so heart-wrenching. But for the first time, I think that I was, I don't know, I was just walking the path closer to Haley this time and paying more attention to her, the way that she internalized and the way that she didn't feel like she could reach out. That really spoke to me, and it made me wonder what it is inside certain people that makes them feel comfortable reaching out for help and when they don't,
Right. Yeah, man. And not to be redundant, it's also just those people that feel trapped. She really, like Haley, that's what's to me so sympathetic about it, is just because she feels trapped. She's gone through stuff. She's felt like she's tried to do it this way. She's tried to do it that way. I can't get a job. She felt like I can't get a job. We don't even know exactly why, but I recognize that, right? Those are the things that make up a situation where you end up feeling like you have to prostitute yourself, and I really sympathize with her a lot when it comes to just, again, like not knowing what to do, never being exposed with that. But it's also just, I feel like I've said this term too many times already on this podcast, but emotional maturity. Because she doesn't have it, it's hard to make good decisions in life. It's you have to make, life is about choices and decisions and making sound, smart ones. You touch the stove, I'm not going to do it again. Oh wow, I need to lay off of that sometimes, whether it's a drug or a man or food, whatever. And you learn from the women in your life and from the men in your life and from the functional people that, as you grow up and you are able to kind of build a conglomerate of mentors and stuff. But she has none of that. And that's why she falls victim. And thinking about her actions, I was going to ask you about the oneer when they go from Haley's or room, her and Bobby go from yelling at each other up there to her downstairs slapping her pad on the window. And first of all, that's what you're talking about with her just yelling, just spazzing out. She's not equipped with the chi to be able to do what she has to do. So that's when we get these wilding out moments. But I also want to know on a technical level, like, did you see that one, or were you ever around the discussion of knocking that out? I love that shot.
Just the scene of whenever they're arguing in the lobby, and she's just she just acts out like a big child, and she walks out and puts her pad on the window. This is what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I think it started upstairs in her room, and then they went all the way downstairs, all the way.
You're not my father. This isn't a jail.
Yes, exactly.
What the F are you looking at, Tina?
Yeah,
like
man.
Random passerbyers.
Right.
I know. It's also real, and I think that we were there. We had Alexis Zabe.
Yeah. That's what y'all called him on set, Zabe?
I know. I think it is Zabe, but I feel like we said Zabe sometimes. But Alexis, he's amazing.
The DP for the DP for my next short film, he actually went to like a, what do you call it? Like a workshop that Alexis ran.
Oh, rad! That's awesome.
Yeah, I just so happened to tell him that I was going to be. Actually, I was showing him how I wanted to use anamorphic lenses, and he was like, "You need to give me a reason." And I love that he makes me do my homework, because he's like, you can't just do stuff just to do it. He makes me think about it, right? He was like, so I was looking up shots on Florida Project, and I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh, I've worked with that DP," and I was like, "Well, I work with that producer. That's crazy, man." Yes.
That's awesome. I love it.
That's cool.
It. Yeah, I mean, he's super talented, and they did, as far as production, I mean, we were still really low budget. It was one of the biggest budget films that Sean had ever done. His last film, Tangerine, was shot on the iPhone, and he did really well in the festival circuits. And so
genius.
He knows how to make a lot out of a little, which is really cool. And we did shoot on 35 millimeter, which is, a hell of a budget line item, but it was all same thing. It was very intentional. Him and Alexis are like, why are we doing this? What do we want the field to be? And what is, gonna kind of come across in this imagery through this medium, like very intentional. But that scene, I think what's really cool about the way that Sean and Alexis worked together was, it obviously, the story is fiction, but it's shot very documentary style in the sense that, like, the motel is still an up and running motel. Everybody in the background that you see are people that are really living there.
Oh, wow.
Like, using the space.
And the production design?
I'm sorry?
And the production design, like with the bikes and the trash hanging outside and all that?
All that stuff, like some of that we brought in, but a lot of that is just already there. And so we just kind of added to it or moved it into the frame a little bit more. But everything was, we paid for locations as they were. We didn't like shut them down. Sean, in one of his interviews, talks about there'll be times where he's directing Willem Dafoe and the hotel clerk phone will go off and an actual clerk will have to run over and answer it because they're still an up and running business. Like, Sean's very guerrilla style, and there's something really special that you get when you're the scene that we're talking about where they're going from her room down the spiral stairs into the office and back out. All the people that you see, like some of them we had blocked and staged, of course, but there's just so much of life happening around outside of them in the forefront of the scene that makes that scene so juicy that, like, I think that's what I love most about it. It's just like you can't make some of that stuff up. There's one shot in the opening where the kids are walking by the big Florida orange store and there's like a man in a motorized wheelchair kind of like just going by. I mean, you just can't make that up.
Wow. That's so cool, man.
Like these things are like that's what we all call movie magic.
Right.
And so there's a lot of movie magic in the Florida project. There's a lot of it because Sean Baker is just the type of filmmaker that holds space for magic. He has an idea in his head and he knows what he's going for, but he really holds space for like whatever happens, and it's usually this like really beautiful conglomeration of like reality and scripted, and it was really cool to just watch him work.
Yeah. Wow, man. I always say it's so cool you say that because as early as I am in my career, I always say that, best case scenario, any of my film sets, I am a context. I am maintaining a context, whether that be the structure, the idea that sparked it all, the voice, the spirit through it. Like it is a best case scenario for me to be a context, and that I have delegated powers to a lot of awesome people that are way better than me at their specific task. And throughout every day, I am just being their coach, like I'm being the best, their assistants, I'm everybody's assistant on set. And I love how you just said that, like him creating that movie magic is all, in akin to that, where he's basically just perfectly has mastered how to create that environment for the magic to happen, for the controlled stuff to happen, but be able to be bounced off of the organic things that are operating. It looks like that, like that's jazz. I just finished doing La La Land with one of my friends, so I keep bringing up jazz. I did it with Obi-Wan the other day. I need to get jazz out of my head at this point. But, that's the jazz, man. Sean's playing jazz out there, man, so that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. So, just cruising on down the film. It's, again, because it's so meaty, and I love how you say how thought out a lot of the shots were, because the feelings are there, and I love that you already brought out when he's smoking the cigarette, when he's a silhouette. That was tragic hour, I guess. Just a beautiful dark blue that was behind him. Oh, such a gorgeous shot with the orange lighting his face up from the cigarette. I love that shot, man. And again, it's that pondering, when you're talking about really filling the frame out in more ways than one. It's the pondering about this trap that they're all in. To him, to Haley, or to the woman that wants to sunbathe with her breast out, he's the man. But he's the man that the owners are going to fire if they don't get their bikes from the railings, if there's woman is exposing her breast out while kids are walking around. He's trapped there too, right? And again, I love the little shots here and there that kind of give that off. And then the interactions within everybody in the community. I have family members where they'll talk to me asking what can I do, whether just kind of venting, whether it's boyfriend or friends, or to try to adjust things in their life, right? To kind of add some, some more support in their life. And you listen to them talking about in their day to day, and a lot of people bringing a lot of negative energy, and just in not, and because you're lonely or because you're in these rough places, and also because maybe you haven't created a standard of living for yourself. Nobody's ever taught you that. You just kind of let in a lot of random energy from around a lot of people. And I just think about when it comes to Ashley and Haley and the older Latino woman. Mooney and them are out there spitting on her windshield. Mm-hmm. And that, instead of it in one realm, it being this needs to be taken care of, that person needs to be excommunicated. In this world, she actually has to bring that energy into her life because they're all stuck there. And actually, this situation actually is going to establish their relationship. And trauma bonds, my wife throws that term around, where it's a lot of times you can be around people for the wrong reasons. You're kind of bonded by somebody by the wrong reasons, and you don't realize it because you don't want to be lonely. But I just think this happens so much in this world. When you think about the interactions between Haley and Ashley, Haley ends up beating her up, but Ashley just is trying to do what I just said. She's just trying to get people out of her life that are going to teach her son wrong and get, weird vibes around her. She's just trying to live right, but there's no justice out here in the Wild West. She's the one that gets beat up, right? She's the one that calls DCF, and she's the one that ends up getting Haley caught. But that happened to Haley, right? So woe is me, right? If you're Haley, why is it that this always happens to me? I was trying to do good, right? But again, there is this cycle that we're witnessing here of all of these kind of unfortunate situations, which I'll also almost completely juxtapose to that, which is also that sort of familial bond that you get when you're in poverty, because we're all stuck here. So it's like you kind of notice how people quickly kind of gravitate towards each other, because we all know that we're dreaming the same dreams and we're all stuck in the same trap. So we kind of all are here, and you in a world maybe where people are worried about their reputation and stuff, everybody's kind of shutting each other out. They have stuff to lose, right? When you have nothing to lose, you do kind of notice more of a familial bond. I just said 60 different things, so you can say whatever.
I love that, and I love what you're saying. I noticed that this time about Haley too, that there was this sort of like, the whole, whenever Jancy starts helping out washing the car after Mooney and Scooty are cleaning it, the grandma's like, stop helping, why are you helping, like this is their punishment. And Haley's response is, let them have fun. Like, she has sort of subscribed to just relax, like we're all in this, life sucks for all of us, just like let her help, like stop trying to create these like rigid stigmas around someone did something wrong so they need to pay for it. If the little kid wants to help, let her help. And I think there's something really interesting about this. Like, I think it's very paradoxical for Haley, because on one hand, subscribing to that way of life and being familial and creating those bonds with people because the common denominators are poverty and this is just where we are. Like, I think that part of that is like, it's all a double-edged sword, right? Like, part of that's really great that this community is sort of built around that. And at the same time, in the same breath, yes, we need to accept where we are. And she accepted where she was so hard that she couldn't see anything outside of it. Like her like her sense of self and her perspective, like the only way I can get money is if I prostitute myself out. Like getting from those thoughts of scarcity and fear to action is
Right.
really, I think, an important message in this film. Like whenever you do live in a place where your basic needs aren't met, like once again, like you go to things, like you make choices based on fear and scarcity, because that's the level from which you're neurologically operating.
Right.
When you
Right.
have more money and more freedom and more space, you could probably say, oh, I could make money cleaning. Oh, I could make money doing a bajillion other things. But when you're in that level of stress and desperation and low self-worth, it's really hard to see outside of that. And I think that Sean did a great job with Haley's character and representing that sort of like that implosion of desperation, like what that looks like when you can't see outside yourself.
When Haley is, when we're talking about making these, the decisions that she's making, and she's feeling stuck in the situation, she doesn't see anything better for herself. She doesn't think that she. So as I feel you where it's like you respect this sort of peace that she kind of has had within her. But especially now, me being a parent these past few months, where I think so much a little more rigidly about it, because I'm a hippie Rasta, man. Like I'm all about free love and do what you feel and all that jazz. That's great, but when you're talking about changing your stars, when you're or when you're talking about doing something, when you're talking about moving a ship, right? Like it takes so much, when you're talking about these sort of situations, and when that you're in these bad situations, you need to have you need to have a standard. There needs to be a standard of living that you are going to tell yourself that this is what it is right now, right? And it's that freedom. She thinks she's the cool mom, right? But it's that freedom that's sending them out to go burn down the hotels. It's that same freedom that has them around potential child molesters. It's these situations that are, you're beating up your ex-friend in front of her son. It's all of these sort of situations that just that mentality of being free, of being like it's all good, it's that mentality that's holding you down all the while. And I'm always telling my wife, whereas I'm always asking myself, if I'm getting a lot of negative energy, or if I'm in a position of service where I know that I need to tap into some energy, I want to have it in surplus. So instead of just hanging out with whoever, and instead of watching whatever and listening to whatever, I'm going to fill those days in my friends, in the music that I listen to, in the movies that I listen to, the high vibratorial things, so that I have this in surplus when the tougher times come, right? But again, she's just constantly dealing with an empty take, so that's why you spaz out. That's why you go to the drugs. That's why you do the same thing that keeps demeaning you, and that's what you identify yourself with, right?
In an interesting way, I think what we're talking about is mental health, and I think the reason why it's interesting, because it's subtle, and it's like, it's not like we're talking about it directly, and it's not like Sean Baker was like, I'm going to set out to make a movie about mental health. But I think just in terms of like the timeline of our history and how, I know it's 2020, but there are still obviously so many things that are still off the table, as far as like comfortable conversation, as far as race or mental health, like some of these things that have gone on since the 2008 recession and housing crisis. When that film was being developed in the minds of Sean Baker and Chris Burgosh, mental health and its systems were in a totally different just the structure itself was at a different place. I think even now, as we're having this conversation, like collectively, our consciousness has become more aware of some just mental health issues and how to like neurologically understand some things. And I do think that is an important point to bring up, because like, once again, like our circumstances, our environmental factors, all of that affects our mental health and our thoughts. And as you said earlier, like the things that we go to as far as substance, and I consider that anything from food to TV to actual drugs or alcohol, but like everything that we're intaking, the air we breathe, everything is a chemical game. And so ultimately, I think just what I'm learning personally, and what I love that this film re-inspired in me, is just this idea of like our thoughts about ourselves, our thoughts about the world, our thoughts inside of our inner dialogue is the most important chemical to happen to our bodies. And this time around watching the Florida Project, I know I'm so stuck on Haley, but I'm just like so infatuated with her mental health journey, just like personally, because she's sort of in these thought patterns of again, like not being able to see a way out, and like it's really difficult to be creative and have creative solutions to really difficult problems when you feel that low and that stuck. And so again, like I know that wasn't like something that Sean or Chris were super intentional about, but I think just because they're human and art is created by humans, and the evolution of the Florida Project since it's come out, so many things have happened and revealed itself. I don't think that the housing crisis has gotten any better. I think things have gotten a lot harder, but I think this film touches on what I think is just some neurological things, kind of like you're saying. It doesn't matter if it's black, white, Latino, it doesn't matter. Like neurologically speaking, we create associations to our life and to people and to where we are. And when I have these conversations, I automatically want to go to how do we solve it? How do we save the world?
Right.
But ultimately, I think what you're doing is part of that process, which is just creating a platform to talk about it. Like we've all been Haley at one point or the other, no matter what class system we've grown up in. We've all created neurological stories in our heads to keep ourselves stuck. That's something that we can all relate to.
So real. Yeah, man. You're I love how you alluded to that story in your head, man. It's as real as Holyfield. We're doing Inception in a week or so, and that I was writing my notes about it, and I was just saying how we do have to do like this healthy inception, right? Where I have like these awesome memories of when I was Simba at the Lion King, and on the at the play when I was like in the third grade or fourth grade, and it's encouraged me in auditions and MCing and all that stuff, but it's probably not as glorious as it is in my head. Probably it's like in my head is this awesome full suit, and I was on cue, and then everybody clapped, everybody looked left, everybody looked right, and in my head it's like this glorious Glee episode, but it's probably looked like every other third grade recital, right? But it's this
their nose.
Right. Yeah, man. It's like, oh, I go now? Oh, it's like, but it's like, but it's that inception where you're talking about good mental health. It might sound delusional, but building those skills, those soothing skills to kind of tell yourself, kind of create this identity for yourself to go to that next step, to get yourself out, so to not feel trapped. It doesn't always have to be necessarily about being so goal oriented all the time, but just when people are feeling trapped, they just don't have those tools. And a lot of people don't know that it's mental health because we deal with such a penal system about it all. There's people in jail and there's people that are homeless that should be getting treated right now. Unfortunately, it's just they kind of get swept under the rug because we've just figured out, instead of figuring out ways to assuage the situation, we've figured out a lot of creative ways to profit off of it, right? That's, to be honest, that's where the energy goes to. And I think that's all any of us can do. That's all any of us can do when we're talking about what our craft is. If we can be of service to fighting the good fight, the fight that we believe in, and we can tilt things over on the side that we believe most in. And I like to tell stories. So as superficial or as meaty as that is, that's great, right? And then whether you're a clinician or a doctor or you're a politician, whatever may have you, again, when we're talking about moving the ship, when we're talking about change, it's never this pivot thing that you can do if you're like a receiver or something. You can't, everybody's gotta go. And it takes this conglomerate, and now we're getting into this whole systematic stuff, but I only brought that up just to say this is where where idealist dreamers like us can go to, right? We can, I think that a lot of times we can marry ourselves to ideas, and then that's where a lot of discourse and a lot of arguments can come into. I don't want to talk to you about what I believe in, or I don't want to tell you what I believe in. I want to say it, and then let's bounce off of it, and let's figure this thing out, right? I'm not the authority. You're not the authority, and what's really cool is when you are a part of, as a filmmaker, when you're a part of that conglomerate. I personally feel that when people ask me, when they're like, "Oh, I love how you did that one person walked by as soon as he put his head down to let you know that the person's walking away from them," and it's like you're talking about, that's movie magic. I think that comes from everybody being a part of what that theme that was stated a long time ago. And it's when we all are honest to the process, when we all respect the process, those sort of serendipitous moments happen because everybody's respecting the process. Everybody's respecting the characters. Everybody's respecting the production design. Everybody's respecting the time in the day that we have to get what we need to get done. Everybody respects the process so much that these serendipitous moments are able to occur. And not just those serendipitous moments, but also the feelings, the authentic feelings that people see. There's somebody that lived that life and was like, "Oh my gosh," when they were outside hustling around for that ice cream. I remember when every day after school we would wait outside that ice cream spot. We'd ask 4 people for a quarter, and we could split up that ice cream cone. And did I think of that? Did Sean think of that? I don't know, but he did think of that. We did set up the idea. We did set up the theme, and we set up the characters and the situation for everything to occur so that these individual raw and real moments can occur, right?
Definitely.
It's so cool.
Especially with working with kids, you're definitely having a lot of faith in the
oh my gosh
in the process.
Mooney?
As a director, you are a creator, you are a producer, you are making something into reality that wasn't there before. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that Sean did a really beautiful job of creating certain moments that have this genuinely felt visceral feeling that you can feel through the camera, like you're with these people. And he also did a good job of allowing space for things to happen. So I think there's a cool combination of creating and making it happen, and allowing it to happen. And I think that was a really cool just experience to have. Yeah. What other questions you got?
No, man. No, this is great. I'm loving this. So we're in the fourth quarter at least. So we can start thinking about our bigger concepts that we might want to punctuate. But I do want to talk about when you were bringing up the casting. My favorite part in the film, because I'm a glutton for punishment, is Mooney. The police are there. They've told the caseworkers are holding Haley inside of the apartment or in the motel. She's getting Mooney's things together. Mooney bolts off. Yeah, I don't want to go. She bolts off, and her instincts took her to her friend. Took her to her friend's house, and she just breaks down and cries. You're my bestest friend, and this is probably the last time that I'm ever going to see you, and you want to talk about feeling trapped. That is how that is so unfair, right? You're just like, that is not fair. This sweet little girl, yeah, she was mischievous, she was a little badass, but she, all children are, especially if you don't have anybody to learn from. And in this moment, she's so confused. Why is this happening to me? Why is my world being about to be ripped? And unfortunately, again, like, we know what's going to happen to her. And it's so sad. She knows what's going to happen. That's why she's crying. First of all, that actress, oh my gosh, I don't know how that scene happened. Oh my Lord. That was incredible. She nailed it, man. I don't know how much jazz Sean had to play with were you around for those takes? Like, what did she know those exact lines, or was she just kind of coached on what that scene is, or how did that happen?
So Sean had an acting coach who's also his partner, Samantha Kwan, and she worked really closely with Brooklyn and the other kids. And as Sean says so eloquently, kids they take a little bit more hand holding. He says it a lot better than me, but Samantha just had this like natural way of. Samantha is also an actress herself and has worked with kids before. And so I think that she just had this innate ability to communicate and say, do you remember a time where you didn't remember, where you thought maybe you lost mommy and daddy, or you thought you maybe weren't going to get to see a friend again? How did that make you feel? And so, like, in the same way that, like with an adult, when you're directing them and you're like, here's the feeling I'm going for. Right. Samantha was really able to do that and communicate those types of character modalities with kids. And she was so brilliant at just pulling that out of Brooklyn. And so specifically for that scene, I mean, we were all blown away. Blown away. We had done a couple of takes right up until the moment where she would get emotional, but that was really her first take of doing that. Like, that was just what she brought to the table.
Wow.
And
shout out.
Yeah, it was really incredible to watch. And whenever everybody asked her, like, how did you do that, or what, whatever, I think, I remember even little Brooklyn just talking about, I just thought of like what it would be sad to be taken away from my mommy. Like, she was just putting herself in the real situation of Mooney and feeling those feelings and taking it the next step, which is allowing herself to feel those feelings in front of other people. It was one of those funny moments where, like, afterwards she stopped crying, and like she was like so genuinely worked up. She didn't actually ever stop crying, and we're like, it's okay. These feelings aren't real. We're just doing leave. Wow, but she got herself into that point of feeling like this was the last time she was going to see Jancy, and just really felt into that stuff. No, we were all blown away. We were all like, this child is very special.
Right. Wow, man. That's incredible, man. And how old was she?
Oh gosh, I don't
For me to do that
know,
to you.
4, 5, yeah.
And that's incredible. Yeah, it's great, man. That was incredible. Like she gets me every time. Every time I see that scene, I'm tearing up, man. It's so
I
beautiful.
think they're all around 6, Trey. I think
Really.
that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, man. No, that's still, man, that's great. And again, it just creating that environment to be able to get them to do that.
Right, right.
So I wanted to gear back towards talking about your trajectory and everything that you've done in your career. I want to know just I'd love to hear about what's gotten you to here. I know you were saying that you stepped out of the industry. You're in Colorado. You're married. This is all new to me. We can take this whole part out if you want. I just want to hear how did you
No, I'm not married yet. I mean, we act like we're married, but we're not officially married yet. But yeah, I think that leaving the industry, like once again, I just kind of wanted to get quiet and still with myself and see what type of creative floodgates would open, like creating that sort of space for myself.
And that was in LA?
Well, I was in LA, and when I left LA, I actually went and traveled Peru for a couple of weeks by myself.
I think I remember
And
seeing that
to
on the
like
IG.
send myself off on an intentional journey.
Yeah, man. I hear
my
you.
own
Yeah.
little my own little alchemist.
Nice. Yeah, man. I hear you.
Yeah,
I want that IP. I want that IP so bad. I want to make that movie so bad.
right. I know. I've thought about that too. There's just so many inspiring things to even pull on, like just as a writer. So many good nuggets in there. But yeah, and then left Los Angeles, and I spent some time with family for a little bit, bouncing around, and then moved back out to Gunnison, Colorado, where I had gone to school before, and it's just been like, I think a lot of dreams and ideas have been unearthed to me over the years, but there's just, I don't know, I feel really close to myself, my higher self, my creative self when I'm in the mountains and when I'm seeing this level of beauty and spaciousness. Like, I don't mind going to the cities and hanging out, but like, when I lived in LA, I would be like, I would like to go to Target, and like I couldn't just go to Target. I had to go to like a parking garage, and then I could go to Target.
Wow.
But it just wasn't for me.
It's a process.
There's a lot of stimulation, and I think for someone who wants to create stimulation for other people in this really weird way, like I need to be in a space with not so much stimulation in order to like get this flowing. And so even though I stepped away from like producing and working in LA and just sort of being in that environment, out here in the Gunnison Valley, Crested Butte is just 30 minutes north of us, and they have a film festival. And I actually showed my short film Frog there the year I moved here, and 3 years ago, and it won the festival award, which was really fun and exciting, and felt like, just homey and like encouraging. Thank you, Trey. And it just felt like a moment to be able to honor the creative work that I've done and the visual love letter that I wrote to myself and my family. And that was my short film Frog, was like kind of a visual poem of, we all do the best we can with what we have at the time. I'll send it to you sometime.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'd love to see it later.
I'll send it to you. Cool. So after I kind of interacted with the film festival that way, I got involved and we created a youth film club. So the high school up there, we did middle school and high school students, and we did like 2-minute short videos for each group, and we did a little festival. The community came to the screening, and I did like a Q&A with the middle school and high school students. So I've been playing around with film in the ways that like feel comfortable for me. But I think I left in the middle of the Me Too movement. Not too long after that, the company I was working for went under, so it didn't exist anymore. And I stayed in LA for a little while to try and just see if there was other work for me there. And I was just kind of led back here. So I think that with everything going on in the world and just the ideas that are, percolating for me, I've just been really drawn to this, I don't know, this place of like have a home base, but be able to kind of go out and connect, but always have somewhere I can come back to that feels like home and secure and spacious.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, for what is worth, I don't know who else you know down here, but you definitely have a conglomerate out here in Atlanta here with me. I got you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I need to come visit or come hang out and work on one of y'all's movies whenever that happens again.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll keep you posted as things happen. You never know. I'm hoping that we get this feature going next year that I could keep you posted about.
And I'm not far from Santa Fe and Albuquerque. It's only like 4 or 5 hours away. So I know that when there's not a pandemic happening, there's film life going on not too far away from me. So I definitely want to stay involved and also just pursue that domestic life because that's just part of being human. And it's funny, like it's been an interesting journey to transition. Like you were mentioning, you are a workaholic and you're used to those 16-hour days and putting yourself through all that suffering. And so it's interesting to choose to do it a different way. I'm doing 12 hours of work, and some people might say, but on what? And it's like, just, different. Just because society doesn't pay me to do at-home domestic projects doesn't mean that they're not valuable to me. And so, or valuable at all, or eternal, some of the things that we are called to do are way more eternal and cosmic than we even realize, even if we don't get paid for it.
Exactly. Yeah, man. And it's all for everything. You got to live a genuine life to be a storyteller, because then you have no stories to tell, right? It's so encouraging to hear, man. Like I'll say, man, like you always have had a beautiful soul, whenever we interacted, whenever we worked together. And I'm so glad, I've seen so many other colleagues where, we get ran down by the industry and we go run and hide at some place. Oh, will I ever see the lights again? Or, I've been battered. I've been battered by this life. Oh man, give me 1 second because I got to put a battery into my audio recorder.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, because that's where we get paid the bucks for, Yeah, the cameras can go out, but the audio goes out. It's all for naught.
For sure. No, I appreciate you reflecting those things to me. I think it's really hard to make decisions. We think that, I don't know, like I feel like collectively we think that we have to choose all or nothing, like be a filmmaker or be a homemaker, be a this or be a that. And all my experiences has shown me that you can do both. It's just a matter of decisions you make and what you're intentionally cultivating. And
right.
Some people want the run and gun of 16-hour days and do that every day for a lifetime. Personally, I don't mind hanging out in the back of a kitchen and washing some dishes on a weekend and not knowing what I'm going to do next season. I'm okay with that. If that's what gives me experience to create. And it's funny that you say that. That's actually what kind of inspired me. Like at one point at the end of my time in Los Angeles, I had a conversation with another producer I had met with about a job. And she had just said, sometimes we need to take a break and just do a regular job. And I think that there's so much humility in that I've been calling forth. Like, I thought I was going to be some famous director and writer and blah, blah, blah. And that's all great and dandy. And there's these other, like, more simple things in life that I value that I really think is more of my priority to focus on right now. So do I want those things? Yes. Do I want it in the way in which I was pursuing it? No. So am I going to just adjust the route a little bit? Yeah.
That's so cool. Exactly. Yeah, man. Hold on. Slate again, because sorry guys, we're about the interruption. The audio went out. I know we were getting to some meat and potatoes, but man, we were just talking about just being in this industry and just not letting it pull you everywhere. And that's in the industry. You want to know yourself, know thyself, right? Like I feel like I'm always saying that. Know yourself and know what you want to do. Set your intentions to it, and it's okay even if you don't know it off rip, if you don't know it exactly, but as long as you're figuring it out so that you don't get ran down by this industry, because it can be a beautiful industry. It can be those experiences on Loving, where we all felt like a family, and Joe Edgerton and Ruth Negga are beating down my door so we can go hang out on Saturdays. We can have these things where we feel like we're the Florida project, that we're doing a project that is meaning, that has meaning and needs to be heard, and we can be the the ideals. We can be the win the awards and do the big projects. And yeah, the outliers, you hear the stories of these outliers doing astronomically crazy things, cool things that humans are able to do. And that's not to say that you aren't able to do it. I always go back to, A Dream Deferred with Langston Humes, like what happens to it, because I feel like when I was with my more pessimistic self, it was a depressing poem, but I feel like I've been filled a lot more positively to be able to see things. And now I'm excited when I read that poem, because maybe it's a rewording of it, because it's no longer a dream deferred. The way I see it is it's living your purpose and being okay with it, and forgiving yourself for living the life that you want to live, and having the courage to make the decisions to do that, and not to compare it to anybody. And that's what dreams are made of. No matter what your truth is, no matter what your path is, if you want to make that blockbuster movie and you see yourself there, and you are in Podunk, Alabama, and nobody is looking at you, and you don't feel like you're anything, and you don't feel like no one cares about anything that you have going on, you have your 2 feet, Lord willing, you got your voice, and you have an opportunity today to tell your story right now. Like, and it's in understanding that the greatest of them started off like that. And it doesn't matter how much sustenance you have. It doesn't matter if you were born with a camera and the studios behind your house and your uncle is the biggest producer ever. If you don't have the idea, if you don't have the courage to live your truth and to master your craft, then it's all for naught anyway. And it's so beautiful. Again, like I said, it's so encouraging to hear you talk about where you are right now, and look fondly at everything that has accumulated and became to who you are today, and just be so content and happy with it. And I'm encouraged by it, man. I just want you to know, me personally, if our experience is only a Loving, I know for a fact Dani will get it done. If Dani has an intention, I've seen you manifest it, man. I've seen you manifest it, and I've seen you do it with the sweetest touch, with being so kind, with being so respectful to everybody. And I am forever grateful for it, man. That's why I reached out to you for this. I was so excited to be able to rekindle and to contact, man. And I'm looking forward to us keeping keeping each other posted in the future.
I agree, Trey. I think that Loving is such a special movie. Obviously, the filmmaking experience, but that film in and of itself, I know this is a side note, but both of these films, actually, the Florida Project and these main characters, what they have in common is they were unapologetically themselves. And I think what I take from them as a viewer, as someone who worked on it, as someone who was close with these characters on set, it's like that is the message to take from them, is to live the life that you feel called to live with conviction, and change happens around you that way. Like, change happens on a micro level. Like, everyone is super focused on making macro changes and aren't taking the step to humbly look inside and say, what do I need to change on a micro level in my own life? And I just feel like I don't know. That's the lesson that I'm getting from the film that we worked on together and the film that we're talking about today, and just all the filmosophy and life philosophy that we're throwing back and forth. I really love it. It's super. To me, this is lifeblood. I think that these types of conversations are what inspire ideas, and ideas become things. They become movies. They become technology. They become things that we use and refer to for a long time. And so I'm grateful to everyone that I've gotten to work with. And I don't want to give the wrong idea. It definitely has been hard to walk away from the industry. I definitely have had some toxic work culture experiences that put me under, or like gave me a low vibration to hold on to for a little while, and that's been part of the process. But I really appreciate what you're saying, because ultimately that was my goal, is to, in everything that I do or experience, to be able to look back at it fondly and say that's what's made me me. And like, we're all living out these, we are the star in our own movies. That is our life. And we are all in it together. And I do love that we can make films and talk about how to make the world a better place. And I'm really interested in making and creating more things to have these discussions, to encourage and empower more people to do what Sean has done, what Jeff Nichols has done, what you're doing, like just to keep creating from your point of reference, because it's all you have. And whenever we create from our unique perspective onto this planet, we're projecting a really special window into the soul of our universe that I think each of us need to see. And the goal isn't to see everyone's unique movie. The goal is to just hold space for the fact that everyone has stories that create transformation, and no human is greater or less than the other. We all have these innate capabilities to create not only a life that we deserve and are proud of, but we also innately have the gift to create beyond just living and surviving. And so how can we get more people, how can we get more majority of our own country, I guess we could start there and then go for the world, but how can we get more people with their basic needs met so that they're actually living from an intuitive, creative place? That's the kind of world I want to see.
That's awesome. And I can't help to piggyback off of that with the words of the great Michael Jackson, by starting off with the man in the mirror. That's how we'll do it. That's how we'll make the change. That's all any of us can do, and just going from there. Man, Dani, I love this conversation. We're going to have to do it again. Now, I know there's a lot of indie filmmakers that may be watching this, so I wanted to ask you about the final shots in Disney World. Did the House of Mouse come and stomp down upon thee? Like what how were y'all able to get this shot?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Speaking of intention, it's interesting, like, more morally speaking, there's all these rules that that you have to follow in filmmaking, from each union for locations. There's all these different guidelines and red tape that you have to follow. And one of the things that I really love about Sean is his experience with guerrilla filmmaking and just going and getting things. He's like, can I film this pit bull? And we're like, it's a little bit different with a higher budget film, and but I just love that that run and gun potential, because you do get so many beautiful things from it. And to answer your question, there was a lot of research done on I'm blanking on it now, we'll have to find it, but there was another film done where some guys had gone in guerrilla style into Disney World or Disneyland, one of the two, and we basically just mirrored and used that as an example of what we can do. When you're in the parks, you can take your photos, you can take your videos, you can do all that kind of stuff. So as long as we weren't causing it any harm, ultimately it's kind of up to Disney if they think the film itself was a negative representation of it or the town. That could have been a really that could have been a really hard wall to
Right.
stand up against.
Right.
But the other thing that I really love about Sean and Chris and Samantha and his team is this unwavering faith in here's what we want. We don't have any ill intention. We're not trying to get something we're not supposed to have. We're trying to tell a story, and this is going to make it more powerful. And so they took a really small crew in, just bare bones, the writing partner, Sean is the director. I think they had some iPhones. So they had GoPro. They had just some other
Tangerine that thing.
They had some other camera technology available since they couldn't bring the whole 35 millimeter crew along, and just got those really special shots of. I don't know. Like when I watched it again, it like obviously it's very heart wrenching, but something about the music is uplifting. And when they run and get lost in this sea of people, I mean, they're obviously running away from DFS, but they get lost in this sea of people who we have no idea what their walks of lives are. We're seeing people taking pictures with princesses and just having the happiest day ever. And nobody's going on with little Jancy and Mooney. And there's just this beautiful blend of her running into this population of people who probably all are having similar struggles, but just on different levels. And to me, it's just the space where they all enter the same, they're all in that same spot. And kind of in a place of oblivion, when there's like the Disney kingdom and magic's all around you, it's just like the oblivion of suffering. And then of course the screen goes to black and you're like, oh my.
Yes, and cue the tears.
Right.
No, I love that, man. I didn't want to make you a snitch for the producers, I just was curious. I know the indie film, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was just like, I wonder if the House of Mouse approved of this, but no, man, I get it. That's
Not exactly.
yeah, hey, but no, that's beautiful. Just hearkening onto as well, I guess what I'll button it up with the film is kind of hearkening onto what you were saying personally, getting like that nasty feeling out with dealing with everything with the Me Too movement. And I'm so sorry that you had to deal with anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, and I wouldn't mind actually talking to you about something after we're done. But in any event, when you're talking about what we can do as storytellers and what Sean and the crew was able to do, what you guys were able to do with this film is let's get rid of the innuendo. Let's bear it all. Let's talk about why people feel trapped. Let's talk about this system. Let's talk about these situations that people find themselves in where they are powerless or that they feel that way, or when people feel too entitled, where they feel when people feel like that they do have a power that no one has, or no one should have, right? And I guess I'll just button it up with it's seeing Haley's journey, and it's seeing Mooney's. It's the tragedy of knowing, of watching what's happening and knowing how it happened, that it's going to happen again. That is encouraging to somebody who wants to fight the good fight. It might hurt to watch this stuff. I know I've been about. I don't want to see any more slave movies. I don't want to see any more fatherless children and the mother is doing drugs. I don't want to see any more of that crap. But the cops shooting people. I don't want to see no more of that stuff. I'm glad it's out there so that people have those windows to see those things, because I forget sometimes that a lot of people don't know that they exist. But it takes all of us to be screaming from all these different windows of perspectives. Let's kill it all. Like, it's not even allowed. Like, there's too many lights on for anybody to do anything weird, right? So and it's these films is these movements that I feel like is definitely pertaining or helping with that. Dani?
Yeah, I love that. I love how inspired you are. I love that filmmaking for you isn't just about entertainment. I mean, escapism is great. It's great to sit down for 2 hours and to like empathize with other places and people and try to see ourselves there. But when you have an artist who truly desires to connect to the world around him and be a producer of just connecting other people, like that is genuinely felt. Like I feel that from you, like being in your presence through the screen right now as we're talking, like you're genuinely someone who, like, great, we made a movie, but also there's these lasting eternal messages and friendships and connections that were made that can't be taken away. There's just, you know, there's something really special about the way that you're approaching filmmaking as an art, and I really encourage you to hold on to that because it makes you super special and unique, and is what I believe the industry needs. Like, not only did Me Too shake up the industry, but also just with the pandemic and everything shutting down and filmmaking jobs not being essential, like we're really starting to learn like what our society like needs to prioritize. And what's really cool about being an artist and being in the industry is we can help mediate what that is. And so, I don't know, using this platform to talk about timely issues and social impact issues is something that I admire and respect very much. So keep going, keep doing what you're doing.
Blessings. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So we're going to end it for today. Again, I want to thank Dani Johnson. She's a producer. Again, we met working on the set of Loving. It's great to see where we've ended up today. I'm glad to see that we're able to smile and catch up with each other. You guys, I'm sure, hopefully we can see you again. We'll do this again. We can pick like just one of your favorite movies we can kind of geek out about. Yeah, man. That's great. So if you don't mind, I'm going to cut off the computer so I can spill a little bit of tea to you. But first I'm going to go to the bathroom.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Give me 1 sec. Thank you so much, guys. Going to the bathroom. Peace out. Find all our content on thenewfilmosophy.com.